So when I first started learning to play the diatonic harp, I focused mostly on blues music, and then that's when I started going out and playing it, and like blues jams and whatnot. And so mostly that's what you would experience. It was mostly blues stuff. But after a few years, I found myself listening to a lot of smooth jazz. Like when I was driving to work and practicing the harmonica, I would sometimes put on the smooth jazz stations and try to play those songs. So I naturally started trying to emulate this, how a saxophone style of play could be achieved on the diatonic harmonica. Now, one characteristic of the saxophone is the ability to play a legato at any tempo. Legato means smooth. The attack portion of each note played is diminished when you play legato, so the note transitions are much smoother. But the attack profile on a diatonic harmonica often was at odds, got in the way when trying to play certain sax melodies that had a lot of legato elements to it, because you're blowing and you're drawing, and so there's a tendency for that, just that when you change from blow to draw, the note will have a higher attack. You'll hear more of an attack. So that's kind of a problematic, just one of those things you have to deal with. So naturally, now that I'm playing the DM48, the instrument I mostly use is the saxophone, and I noticed this similar kind of issue playing and the blow and the draw. But I noticed that the attack sound was diminished when if I was playing like a flatted note, like playing the slide, or on a trill, or maybe like a pickup note. And I just noticed that it sounded a little like the attack was more muted, right? And I should just start off here, just insert here that the sound engine I use, the sounds I have are from the audio modeling company. I think these are amazing. They sound way more realistic than sampled sounds. Also, they require a lot less storage and memory. And it's kind of funny. It dawned on me because before sampling was invented, MIDI sounds were basically modeled. I used to have an old Ensoniq SQ80 cross-wave synthesizer back in the early 80s. And it had sampled piano sounds, right? But every other sound was a modeled sound with two waves. It had an attack wave and a sustain wave. Now some of the attack waves were sampled. I think maybe like for pluck sounds, they had those. But then the sustain waves were all modeled, and they had some really good sounds, especially for that era. But nothing like the sounds of these modern models by audio modeling. I think they capture some nuances in the sound wave form such as almost like harmonics that sampling cannot capture, and it can't sample fast enough to get some of these harmonics in a sampled sound. And then somehow in the way that this software modeling, it just seems to just sound so real. So yeah, I can't say enough about audio modeling sounds. So up until this point, I was trying to remain as pure as possible to the diatonic harmonica in my approach to the DM48, except, of course, for the ability to change the key of the instrument. That meant I don't have to carry around a bunch of harmonicas. I just need one, and I just change the key for whatever key I need to play in. So my aha moment it was to just abandon my stubborn adherence to the diatonic harp as the foundation for my DM48 adjustments, and just try to leverage as much of the native capabilities of the DM48 as possible. So I wanted to just transform the DM48's playability to make it more suitable for the saxophone music that I wanted to play. So that was my goal. So the basis for this revelation was the slide, because I just noticed that I was getting more legato. I could get more legato sound when I used the slide when I was playing previously. So I'm fully embracing the slide. So the DM40, now you should know the DM48 slide, each hole, and you configure the slide, it can be any note, So instead, I decided to use the slide to produce the draw notes in the custom tunings. So instead of changing my breath direction from blow to draw, I would just press the slide, and it would just be a much smoother transition, closer to what the actual saxophone sound might sound like in a melody. So, introducing the legato tuning. So the remaining question was, before that, what do you do with the draw notes now? Now you're using the slide for what was the draw notes. So what do you use the draw notes for? So the way I see it, there are two choices. Just keep the draw notes as they are, keep them the same. So you can play the note the standard way to draw, right? Or you can play the note using the slide. It gives you options depending on how you want the note to sound. Now, the pros of that approach are you can play it just like a diatonic harp if you want, and and then just use the slide for legato melodic lines. The cons is that you have to learn to play the instrument two ways, without the slide, using the draws, and then with the slide to play the draw notes, right? I think that's kind of a big ask. So the second option is to duplicate the blow note and slide notes in the draw, so that the DM48 will play the same note in each hole, regardless of whether you blow or draw. So that means that the pros in that regard is you don't have any breath control issues anymore. If you're a diatonic harmonica player or any harmonica player, you know that you have to pay attention to how far you've been drawing, because you'll run out of room to draw at some point. Same thing with the blowing. You'll run out of breath to blow out, so you kind of have to negotiate when you're playing in real time, when to fit in a note to draw so you can get a breath, right? So you don't have to worry about that with this duplicating the note and the blow and the draw. You can blow, and then when you decide you need to draw, you just draw, and the instrument will play the same way. But sometimes you do have the con there would be sometimes you would have to time the changing of your breath with the slide, right? So you just have to, that comes with practice. And I did this, so suggestion would be to configure the DM48 both ways and try them out. And you can do that. You don't even have to delete. You can set them up in parallel and go back and forth between the two settings just easily. You don't have to delete one and then do the other. You can have them both active and then just switch back and forth between them to try them out. Of course, I already told you I chose option two, and I call this legato tuning. The other tuning I call legato alt, because for alternate tuning, but I don't really use that. So in order to cover sharps and flats, I use the DM48 arrow buttons, the one button for the sharp and the other button for the flat. So the middle button, the right arrow as a sharp, and then the outer button, the left arrow, as the flat. So by this time, after all trying all these new things out and everything, I've been playing the legato tuning for about 4 months. And after my practice exercises each day, I would try to play some of the 30 plus saxophone and trumpet songs I wanted to learn. So I tried various positions to see if the melody suited one position over another. It's just a common thing that a harmonica player kind of considers. Oh, I also abandoned the bebop tuning at this point in favor of using the custom tunings for adding flats and sharps anyway. So I tried a variation of the diatonic harp tuning, but more consistent. Here's the new legato tuning in a C major. So you can see right there. Oops. So yeah, here is the legato tuning in C major, and you can see that the duplicate notes are always on hole 4 and 8, and it's consistent all the way across. Now, it is a difference here in the diatonic harmonica. Note that second position on a C major diatonic there at the bottom is the key of G, Mixolydian, and it begins on hole 2 draw. That's called cross harp. That's just a standard second position. Hole 2 draw is your root note in that scale. But in legato tuning at the top there, the 2-hole draw, it's actually the slide, is the F. It's not the G. So in legato tuning, second position starts on hole 3 blow, which is the often ignored duplicate note of the hole 2 draw on a diatonic harp, as you can see in the arrow there. So second position is just 3-hole blow on the legato tuning. And as I was alluding to earlier, now the duplicate note's always in the same holes, 4 and 8. And I call this area the cusp because it marks the end of one octave or register and the start of another. So you'll see me use that term. And now at the top, though, because it's always nice to have that the ability to play that 4th octave. So the 12th hole slide plays C as the 4th octave of the tonic in first position. So instead of duplicating the B like in holes 4 and 8, I made a compromise just so you can get that C. So I abandoned my purist approach to playing the DM48. I created the legato tuning to facilitate my preferential style of play, and I took the next logical step in the progression of embracing the DM48 features. So I had that legato tuning already. That was no extra sharps or flats, and now I created 6 more. I created the legato B. That's the flat symbol. So legato B is with 1 flat, and of course we're talking about the legato tuning, and we're in C major. Okay, so we always are starting with that premise here, unless stated otherwise. So there's no sharps and flats. Legato tuning, no sharps or flats. You're in C major. So now I created 6 more legato tunings on the DM48, and the first one I did, leaving it tuned to the key of C, was the legato B, and that just flatted the first flat, which is the B flat, and then the legato BB has the 2 flats, and so that had the B flat and this next flat, which is the E flat, and then the legato BBB is the 3 flats, which is the B flat, E flat, A flat. Similarly, I did the legato S for sharps, and that puts the single first sharp, F sharp, legato SS for 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp, and legato SSS with the F, C, and G, fat cats go, right? Sharps.